In the meantime, we got Bob Barr joining us right now. I love having him on. Of course, the former House manager during the Clinton impeachment trial. And I'm sure, Bob, you were looking at these hearings last night on the January 6th committee, and no doubt wondering, as some Republicans are, some for political reasons, to say the focus should be on all this economic stuff going on, the run-up in prices, the run-up at the gas pump, the run-up in crime, and that's what's going to resonate. What do you think?
I do think that when the election comes in a few months, those are the issues that you've just enumerated, Neil, that will be on people's minds. Nonetheless, what the hearing last night, the kickoff hearing, illustrated was something that I saw the very first major hearing I was involved in when I was in the House, which was the hearing on the Waco tragedy. The Democrats, then as now, they are masters of theatrics. They are the real drama queens because they understand that drama and movies and Hollywood productions resonate with some voters. Republicans, on the other hand, we think that we can talk about cerebral issues and rational issues and civil, and that it doesn't get anywhere. So what the Democrats are doing here is they're trying to make a play to shift attention from what you talked about and which are the issues on people's minds away from that to rehashing the January 6, 2021 incidents.
I always wonder, too, Bob, I mean, regardless of your point of view on these hearings and what they'll achieve, I probably think if you're a Trump hater, you still hate him. If you're a Trump lover, you still love him. But maybe part of the strategy here is to wound him should he entertain running for president again, and that some of your old Republican friends quietly might welcome that. What do you think?
Certainly, that is more than possible, likely. The interesting thing, Neil, another interesting thing, is if you look at the House resolution that established this select committee, the January 6th committee, that is, Trump's name doesn't appear anywhere in it. Most of it, in fact, has to do with trying to figure out what went wrong with law enforcement agencies, the administrative side at the Capitol, intelligence agencies, and so forth. But the hearing last night had nothing to do with that. It was all about Trump. So here you have a House resolution that is supposed to focus on the mechanics of what went wrong and what can be improved. And then you shift to last night, and it's all about Trump. It is simply a method to try and wound, as you say, wound Trump, to weaken him going into this election, but more importantly in 2024. I don't think it will work, and it's a real shame that Congress is wasting its time doing this.
All right, well, obviously some of the Democrats, even those two who sit on the committee, the Republicans obviously disagree with you, but I do find it interesting. I want to get your thoughts because very few people know Washington machinations and how they say one thing publicly and are doing quite the opposite privately. So we were aware 18 months ago that people like Kevin McCarthy were very concerned. Vice President Pence's staff was very concerned that they were entertaining, if we're to believe Betsy DeVos, the former education secretary, exploring the possibility of forcing the president out of his job. And yet, things changed. Maybe just the way that time went and everything, all of that disappeared. Now, it was all resurrected in a lot of these redone conversations and audio and video, recordings that were made public. But what happened, do you think? What changed, even among those who were alarmed by those events?
Really, I don't think much has changed at all. I mean, as we saw last night in the opening statements from Chairman Thompson and Ms. Cheney, it has nothing to do with anything that is at all relevant to anything going on in the real world or that will go on in November. Everybody except this committee and the Democrat leadership, which has nothing else to run on, they've moved beyond this. Republicans have moved beyond this. Putting Bill Barr up there saying, the same thing that he has already said publicly and in his book isn't going to shift the needle one way or the other. Yet the Democrats are sort of lashing around trying to find something to draw people's attention away from the problems that are going to be on people's mind in November. And I think Republicans hopefully will realize that as well and not take the bait that was offered up last night and start rehashing themselves what happened in the 2020 and 2021 elections here in Georgia. If Republicans fall into that trap, then it could affect us Republicans, that is, poorly in the fall.
You know what I also real quickly think is a difference here, certainly when you were the House manager during the Clinton impeachment trial, Bill Clinton was still in office at the time. Iran-Contra, Ronald Reagan was still in office at the time. Watergate, Richard Nixon, still in office at the time. We've got a different president right now. This is 18 months after the fact. I'm wondering if that is sort of taking away the oomph.
It does, because people who pay attention to this, other than, as you say, people that already hate Trump or people that already love Trump, they're going to look at this and they're going to say, what's the point here? You're not talking about removing a president who has done something really wrong, like Richard Nixon or Bill Clinton. You're talking about going after a former president. And the only conclusion that thinking people can draw from it is this is a partisan attack on a former president, not to remove him from office, he's already out of office, but to try and prevent him politically from coming back into office.
Bob Barr, great catching up with you. Have a safe weekend.
Thank you, Neil.